Well, hey everybody, Whitney McFly here, and today we're gonna get to the finale of the Back to the Future garage. Now, it has taken me so long to finish this space, a lot longer than it did the other rooms, and that was just because so much was happening, and of course we did the collaboration with Bentley House, we had a family wedding, etc. You guys have heard me talk about all the things I had going. And then what happened? Well, I ran out of time. So today, I'm finally going to finish the room. We're gonna put up all the walls, the garage door, windows, we're gonna do some lighting, and then we'll add all of the fun stuff that we've made throughout the last several months. We'll put it all together, add tons of accessories, we'll put back in the dolls, and we will finish this space. So let's get to it. I did go in a different order than I typically do with this build out. Usually I start with the room itself and then I make all the accessories or props for it. But this time I did all that first. And so now today we're going to finally finish this room out. So let's take a look at it. You can see here that it has a wooden dark brown floor, which I'm going to keep. It has two walls that are linen, and then it has this other type of wallpaper here that you can tell it's got some wrinkling. It's not really well adhered to the wall, which is fine because I'm about to rip it off. Now the back panel does look like it might be foam board or something, and it does look like it's a false wall. So I'm gonna see if I can easily pull that out. It feels like foam board, so I'm gonna try to take that off. Hopefully it's not glued and it'll be an easy removal, which it actually winds up being pretty easy to remove. And would you look at that? And I'm just gonna actually use this piece that is already in there as a template to create a new foam board. Which is going to be the garage door area. And then since I'm already in the room, let me just rip down this wallpaper. And then behind this is just wood. So I will re-paper over this wood wall right here. So the back wall is going to be the garage. To build that out, what I'm going to do, of course, as I said, is I've recut a new piece of foam board using that faux wall that was already cut from foam board just to freshen it up. So I have that. And then I have found this scrapbook paper at the hobby store in a cream color, which most resembles the wall color that I can tell in the video footage. And then I bought some balsa wood trim and then a larger piece of balsa wood here that I'm going to cut down to be the background for my garage door. And I just needed to make sure that it's nice and thin because I really don't want the garage door to really be sticking out too much into the room because it's going to be pretty crowded as it is. First things first, I need to plan out the trim and where the garage door is going to go. And pretty much I can tell that I'm going to have space to include the tire that we see on the back wall. Then once that's in place, I will go ahead and cut down my balsa wood to create the area where the garage door will be. Based on the measurements that I have, I can do 2 windows showing, and so I'll make sure to cut my balsa wood so that it will allow me to have at least 2 windows above the garage. I do also want to have the dartboard that we see on the garage as well, so I'm going to use that to help place the trim so everything will look pretty accurate overall. And then once I have all of that in place and I cut down on my trim, I'm going to go ahead and stain everything. And the stain color I'm using is Early American. While that stain dries, I'm going to start to cut down my cardstock. Now the cardstock, of course, is just a 12 by 12 square, and I don't want to have really too many seams in the wallpaper. So I'm going to cut it down in the areas where I can cover it with my trim once it's all nice and dry. I bought more cardstock, or I bought more scrapbook paper than I thought I would need, of course, just as a rule of thumb, just in case I mess up. But I actually wound up using a lot less than I thought I would initially. I only used about 3 pieces, and I think I bought 6. But of course, I'm cutting them also to go around the wood, and of course that saved me a lot of paper. So now that everything is stained, I started to glue in the trim, and this is the look here. And I think it's already kind of coming together. You can almost see that this looks just like or similar to the garage door that we're seeing to the back of the set in the movie. From this point, I'm going to go ahead and add a couple of little details here. I want to go ahead and add that tire. I've had this tire for a while and I don't know what happened. It feels like it got a little deformed, but still going to go ahead and use it because the scale is correct. And if I find another tire to replace this at some point, I will. It's kind of got a little bit of a wonky edge going on. And then I'm going to go ahead and place my dartboard on the garage too. And I just tied a little bit of twine around that tire, and I did add a tiny nail up top also, just to add a little bit of detail. And speaking of nails, you know, when I really look at that garage door, you can see that there are actually some metal bars that go across it, and there are rivets in the center, and it's black. Looks like it's about 3 of them. The first thing I'll do is take my ruler and a wall tack, and I'm gonna pop a hole in my balsa wood about every 1/2 inch. And then after that is in place, I'm just gonna take my little nails and go ahead and insert them into the balsa wood. This process was super easy using the balsa, but I will say that it was a little tedious. You know, if you wanted to, you could do a quick Mod Podge sealer really fast, wait till that dries. I didn't do that in this case because I'm going to paint over them. But here's what they look like prior to the paint, just a nice little added detail. And then I'm going to go ahead and brush on some black just over those 3 areas where it looks like there is a metal bar. Now, the next step is to remove the foam board in the 2 windows above the garage there. I do want to backlight this, and so of course I'm going to need to remove that. These are glass pieces that I'm assuming came out of small frames, and so I'm going to wash them up really good, and I'm going to glue them to the back of the garage door. Now, for the lighting, I have one of these light strips that I got off of Amazon, and I'll put the link in the description below. I'm going to light this from behind, but I'm just showing here that when you use the foam board, even though I put scrapbook paper on the front, foam board you can easily see the light coming through. So I suggest, and what I'm going to do here is place a much thicker piece of cardstock behind the foam board. This will keep the light from illuminating from behind, and you don't have to worry about seeing it through your foam board pieces. Now, because I want it to be backlit, I also want it to have a little bit of a sky color from behind and some trees. You can almost see that a little bit in the movie. So what I've decided to do is paint this background with an aqua sky color so that it can really be seen nicely through the garage door windows. And I think I'm going to add a little bit of clouds just for fun, and then I'm going to take my moss, just grab a couple little pieces where I think the tree area would show, and I'm going to glue those in place. And also I've added my light strip. Then I added my wall. I can see a little light bleed to the left, so likely I will add an additional piece of trim right in that area. Okay, now that that wall is in, now we're going to go ahead and start placing the other wall. Now this wall, I'm using the same scrapbook paper, and I used the same measurements for the seam so that I could cover up with some trim. So this is the door that I have already in my stash, so I'd like to go ahead and use it. But is it like the door that we see in the movie? No. The door that we see in the movie is actually a fully windowed door. It does have a shade, a roll down shade in front of it, and this door is actually a little too small for my scene here. The actor, of course, Christopher, is taller, and when you see him walk up to the door, you can kind of see where his head stops almost at the top of the door. And so I'm going to heighten this door just by adding a little bit of extra trim around the bottom edge of the door and around the top as well, so it will look very similar. And I pulled out my doll here, or technically it's an action figure, just to be able to see exactly where I need that door to hit, and I just marked it. Now I went ahead and stained that door, and while it's drying, I want to also create another faux window. Now this one I'm not going to backlight it. We see Marty walk by the window, like a side window in the garage, and you can't really see out. It looks like it might be frosted, but you have the sensation that there's maybe some plants or something behind it. And so all I did was cut out a piece of greenery from my Sunset magazine here in the shape of the window, and where it's going to sit in the dollhouse is going to be halfway cut off, so I'm just going to do a partial window. So I've cut this at a weird angle, and then what I did to give that effect of being frosted, I took a piece of tissue paper and I just glued it right over that. And because it's going to be a flat window, but I need it to have a little bit of shine, I did take an acetate sheet and I cut it down and glued that on top. I added some stained trimmed it out, and then that's going to be my window that's kind of near the lab set that we see in the movie. So now I've installed the window, the trim, and the door. If you look at the door, you can see that I've installed it upside down, and that's on purpose because, like I said earlier, the door is a fully windowed door. The other thing I did was I found another picture in my Sunset magazine that almost looked like a pathway or a walkway with a little bit of greenery to the side. So if you looked at the bottom of the window, it would give the illusion that there's a pathway pathway, maybe walking up to that door. Now I want to create that shade. So all I'm doing in this case is taking another piece of my remnant scrapbook paper that I used for the wall, and I cut it down to the right size to cover the window. I took 2 toothpicks. I folded the paper up the top and one at the bottom, and then I used a little jewelry clasp at the base to give it the look of a pull ring. Glued that on, and now I'm just going to glue this right over the top part of the door. You don't even know that it's upside down anymore. I'm at a weird angle here, but we're gonna go ahead, and now it's time to glue in my marlin. Now the marlin, if this is the first Back to the Future episode that you've seen, I do have an entire video where I make a lot of the accessories that are gonna be used today, including that marlin. This dresser right here, it looks like he has some sort of piece of large furniture like a dresser. I kind of suspect that it's an old record player cabinet, but I have this dresser here that I'll use, I think will suffice. Next to it, of course, I'm going to go ahead and add the science lab that I made a few episodes ago, also in a other video if you wanted to take a look if you missed that one. And then I'm going to add my DeLorean. Again, that comes from another video. It is fully made out of foam. If you haven't seen that video, you can check it out. That's another one of those projects that I loved so much, but as my first one, I feel like I could do better, you know? And so I may make that again in the future for this space. Also, we have the ping pong table with the miniature town diorama on the top. We'll go ahead and add that. Now in the movie, this would have been located behind the DeLorean, of course, but with the space that I have here, it's gonna have to sit to the side. And of course our real working television and setup with recorder. And then I want to add our cans of paint from Doc making the little diorama. It does look like there is a frame sitting right next to the door. And of course I made my harpoons too, that they're kind of sitting back there as well. There also looks to be like an old bicycle wheel, which I don't have, but you know, like I talk about in all of my projects, leaving some things a little undone so that it gives me the opportunity and the excitement to look for treasures as I kind of go along. Of course, we have a globe that sits below the marlin, and then there's also a whole bunch of papers and different stuff sitting next to the globe. But I actually have this right guide piece here. This is chemistry set, and it's such a detailed little chemistry set. I love it so much, so I'm going to include that in the space, and I'm going to put it right next to that globe. I feel like it will work with everything else that we have going on, and I can also enjoy it in this room. Now this box here, these little boxes that I'm using, these were a tiny gift from tiny friend Carol, who sent them to me. And of course this box said Doc Brown on it, so obviously I'm going to use it here. Now where the boxes go would normally have been some other metal cabinets and stuff in the garage, but since I'm not building those, they would have been on the other side of the window. I think I'm going to put this type of stuff here. And then I have some more right guide items here. I've got some old tubes for a tube radio, and I just feel like this is a perfect addition. They're the right era, and these are just great. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that up on those boxes and kind of make a scene out of them. And then Marty's guitar. So this came with the Marty McFly action figure that I'm using in this room. He didn't have this with him when he went back, so I'm gonna go ahead and hide this behind these boxes. All right, so here's the saxophone that we see hanging up on the wall in the garage, so I'm going to go ahead and hang that right about here. And then the Doc Brown action figure also came with some really cool paper. This is the blueprint to his house that we see in the movie, so I want to hang that up on the wall, along with this flux capacitor drawing and the letter that Marty gives to Doc that says don't open until 1985. Now in the area where the cans of paint are and the television, I have a few extra empty cans that I'm going to go ahead and just lay there, along with the fire extinguisher that we made for the room. Because he uses them when the cans go up in flames, I'm just going to set those side by side so they make sense in our room. And then here's Marty's backpack, which I'm going to lay next to the television because that is actually what he was carrying his camcorder in. So I'm going to put that and the skateboard. Okay, and we gotta put my dolls back in. Now, if you're in the dollhouse world, we're calling these dolls. If you're not a dollhouse person, but you're loving miniatures, these are action figures to you. And so we'll go ahead and put those back into the room also. All right, and now the room is really coming together. The only thing that I really need to add are some lights. When you see the view of Marty walking in, there are 2 black desk lamps that are sitting in the back of the DeLorean, and Doc's using them, of course, to work on the car. And so I have 2 of these, and I'm going to add them into the scene. And then of course there is another double hanging light that's right underneath the Marlin, and so I bought this light for that. Now, there are other lights that are hanging in here. There are the industrial green lamps that are hanging also above the garage. I'd love to have those. I've searched for them, but the companies that I know of that carry them were out of stock. So eventually I'll look for those, or maybe I'll find them on eBay or something like that. But again, well, that's just one of those fun things for me to keep my eye out to continue to add to the room. Here's the completed space. Of course, what I love about it is it's still open for additions, right? There are such fun things to add to this room, especially when you see the movie. Oh, I did add one Pepsi can back into the space, Pepsi free. I'm overall very pleased with the way that this space turned out. I love having the dolls in there. I know generally we don't use these type of dolls in the dollhouse setting, but I loved using them with my Indiana Jones office, and I'm just as thrilled to use them in this space. Let me know what you think about that. If you would be open to using action figures in your dioramas or your dollhouse rooms, if they were the right ones for you. So here's a little bit of a photo montage for you to enjoy. All right, everybody. Well, we are finally finished with the Back to the Future garage, and it is time to move on to the next space. And I am so excited to, finally get on to the next room, because I've been drawing up plans for it, and it's going to be so great. You are going to absolutely love it. Oh. I dropped my glasses. Whew. That was weird. Well, I guess you can tell by this new outfit that I'm going to be traveling on down to the Willy Wonka master bedroom, where it's going to be all things chocolate goodness and plenty of other candies in that space. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on that, because I have so much time and so little to do. Strike that. Reverse it. If you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and do so that you don't miss the upcoming space and any other new content. Make sure to hit notification bell so you don't miss it when it arrives, and of course, like this video. Thank you so much for watching, and good day, sir.